I'm going to talk about something. Even if it sounds crazy, and even if this gets like 2 views, it doesn't matter. But it's like, it has to do with superstition, religion, and science. You know, I asked myself some time ago, what is the difference between those things? And you know, I've been pondering that forever. I mean, I asked myself that question maybe 25 years ago. And I've been looking at it. And I think that I've found more similarities than I did differences. Now, I know that there are going to be 150 million trillion people, if they watch this video, who will give me 150 million trillion responses to that question. But I think it's a question that each person has to ask themselves. And ask it with a serious, inquiring thought about it. What is the difference between those 3 things? I think that if you're being really honest, you're going to find more similarities than differences. But there are differences, and those differences are important. But right away, you begin to understand that there are similarities. They're all 3 systems of explaining the world: science, religion, and superstition. Now, this is not a debate. This is just my own perspective, that's all. It's not a debate. I'm not debating with anybody. But it's just that. It's just different perspectives on things. One day, some number of years ago, maybe, let's see, I'm trying to think of how many years ago. It was about 10 years ago. I was on my way to work. And it had rained, I guess, maybe earlier in the morning. But it was early in the morning anyway. And so the ground was wet and everything was wet. And I'm walking toward work. And as I'm walking, I happen to see a $20 bill. I thought, wow, $20, woo, my lucky day. So I went over to pick up that $20 bill, and there was another $20 bill, and another, and another. It was like a total of $140 altogether in $20 bills. I thought, wow. And I remember I thought, okay, let me just grab this. I'll figure it out later and count it out later. And I just grabbed it. It was all wet, and I had some like napkins or paper towels or whatever in my pocket, something. And I remember just wrapping the money up in that because it was all wet. And I put it in my pocket anyway. Put it in my coat pocket. And I got to work, and I remember taking those dryers, you know, those hand dryers, and taking the money and drying it off with that. And I thought, wow. You know, the first thought that came through my mind is, wow, I got lucky. Then I thought, that's like a blessing. You know, God gave me that. Then I thought, you know what? It's just chance, just random. I thought all 3 of these thoughts I looked at it from all 3 perspectives, from a religious sort of perspective, a scientific perspective, and from a superstitious perspective, getting lucky, luck. Then God blessing me. But then I'm thinking, wait a minute, somebody else lost it, so maybe that person got cursed. You know, and then the other thing is just random occurrence. It's just things happen randomly. You just happen to be there at that moment, and just happen to, some money was there. But it's always an interesting thing to think about. There are differences in how we put things together, because in everything there's always the cause and effect relationship. What causes things to happen? If you ever been to a casino, and I go to the casino sometime, not all the time, but I remember a few years ago going to Las Vegas and thinking, and you know, feeling like the way most gamblers feel. I remember I took like $200, and I remember I made it a point to have it all in singles, so at least it looked like I had more money than I did. And the first day I went there and I played like about $10 worth of money and nothing. Then the next day I got lucky. I put in quotation marks, luck. And then, you know, for that whole trip, I actually did quite well. You know, and the thing is that I realized that winning money is just random. But people think certain ways. And I remember reading something about how casinos kind of manipulate people's thoughts with their advertisement. If you've ever been in a casino, you know they have these posters and they have this picture of somebody carrying a knapsack of money. They give you this impression that somehow you could be the one. This could be your day. And it also the way, if you play slot machines, because that's the only thing I ever played in casinos. You get the impression that you can influence the outcome. And there has been research that shows that when people believe that they actually can influence the outcome, they tend to play more. You put more money into it. You put more things into it. As long as you believe, it doesn't have to be true. Obviously, you don't influence the outcome. But if you believe it, you play more. So you have to, the whole atmosphere in the casino is to get people to believe that somehow you can influence the outcome. Bring your lucky rabbit's foot. Forget the fact that there's a three-legged rabbit running around saying, yeah, right, I got 4 feet, and, I hit 4 feet, and I'm not so lucky. So bring your lucky rabbit's foot or your lucky medallion, which I had, my little lucky medallion, or all kind of other things. Like one person I know somebody who said to wear yellow underwear. Please don't even explain. Don't even go into that. But some people believe that they can't influence things. And as long as you believe you can influence things, you will act. You will do. That's one thing. Your explanations affect how you're going to behave. It's not so much the reality itself influences, but the way you explain it. When you look at it from a science perspective, and every time I gamble, if I go to the casino, which I don't go very often, I go maybe once or twice a year, and I don't play no more than about $20 usually. But I just know it's just chance. But I think in my mind, I sort of play along with the fantasy that I have the power to influence it. And I know the difference. But I think about people who actually have a real bad addiction. Like one person I know, there's some guy who had a really nice job, made a lot of money, but he had no furniture in his house and he was always in debt because he would go and play, he would bet on horses and do lottery stuff all the time. Because he thinks he could actually win. Even though the evidence is running contrary to that. The key here is to have this belief that somehow you can actually influence what's going to happen. That you can make it happen. That you can actually control the outcome by believing. Or by using some type of magical object. Something like I could take, maybe if I take my lucky squirrel with me, I'll win. I put that in my pocket, go to the casino. And if I happen to win that day, then I'm going to think, wow, this worked. I go the next day and I lose money. I say, well, I guess it just didn't work. And then the next day I win. Oh, yeah, see, you forget the fact that you lost. It's like what Michael Schmermer said. When he said, we remember the hits and we forget the misses. So that's not science. That's just believing in luck. I know I'm talking more about luck than anything else, and I don't really have a lot of time to talk about the other stuff. But I think about religion, though. Religion is a way of explaining things, too. And sometimes religion doesn't work. Religious explanations don't work. Because, it's like when I found that money. If that was a blessing, and maybe it was a curse for somebody else. Maybe, did I do anything to deserve $140? Or did I do anything to deserve winning money at the casino one day? Over a 4-day weekend, in Las Vegas. Did I do anything to deserve winning money? No, not anything I can think of. And I don't know about the other person who, like with the $140 situation. Did that person do something so bad that they deserved losing that money? I think in real life, if I'm being a little bit more scientific, I think they were just careless. Perhaps. They didn't put the money away well, or they put it in somewhere. And, I've lost things too, so I know. Sometimes you forget something, or you leave something, or you had it in your pocket, but you didn't quite put it down in there well enough and it fell out. Who knows? Things like that happen. That's more being realistic if we stop and think. But it all has to do with the way we process things in our minds. I think the difference between science, religion, and superstition has to do with the way we process reality in our minds. And I think that everybody, no matter what your position is, have those types of thinking all the time. We shift. In some ways, even if you're not a religious person, you do kind of have a religious-like way of thinking. A kind of way that could be more closer to religion, even if you don't think you're a religious person. And we also have a superstitious way of thinking, that somehow we can influence things. When we're watching sporting events on TV, for example, we cheer for the team because somehow we do believe that our cheering has an influence. It's just the way in which the mind works. I think what I'm learning now from looking at much of the research is that it's more about the way people's minds work than it is about anything else. Some aspects of these ways of thinking aren't things we have 100% control over. We do think, even the most religious person has scientific moments. Even the most science-minded person has, religious moments, and they have superstitious moments too. I'm sure that everybody has it, but they won't say that they are. Especially if you feel that I'm a science person. I never am superstitious, and I'm not religious. And in some ways you are religious, and in some ways you are superstitious. You just don't think about it. But I think the thing is to think about it, reflect on it, and ask yourself, are there science moments that you have? Are there religious moments? Are there superstitious moments? How are you processing this in your mind? That's all I wanted to say. I actually just randomly made this video, but it's just something to think about.